Right, we were doing statutory interpretation. Going to explain you the basic reason for statutory interpretation. The perimeters we have fixed. Okay, in our last class. Today I'm going to give you dictation about all the three rules. Okay, the first rule is literal rule. According to literal rule, the words used in the statute must be given their plain, ordinary, or literal meaning. Plain, ordinary, or literal meaning. The House of Lords in Stock versus Frank Jones stated that the objective of the court is to discover the intention of Parliament the objective of the court is to discover the intention of Parliament as expressed in the words used. Arif, can you hear me now? Now, those who are online, can you hear me now clearly? Can somebody write? Okay, let me repeat this. The objective of the court is to discover the intention of the Parliament as expressed in the words used. Okay. The court also stated that if the words used in the statute are quite clear, then they must be applied even though the result is absurd. In the case of Liddell versus Lewis, the court held that literal rule must be applied even though the interpretation, literal rule must be applied even though the interpretation inflict hardship on those affected by the legislation. Those affected by the legislation. It is clear. It is clear that literal rule should be used to find out the meaning of words. If the words used in the statute have one clear and unambiguous meaning. Clear and unambiguous meaning. Although sometimes application of literal rule led to disagreements. Led to disagreement at the highest level of courts. For example, R versus McGuinness. Stop. Go to new para and heading is golden rule. If the application of literal rule leads to an absurd outcome, of literal rule leads to an absurd outcome, or is in violation of an established social principle, in violation of an established social principle, then the courts prefer to apply either the golden rule narrow approach or the broader approach of golden rule. To start. Nipara. In its narrow application, The golden rule is used if the word used in the statute has one clear meaning but leads to an absurd outcome. Full stop. For example, in the case of Adler versus George, ADLER, Adler versus George, GEORGE, the divisional court had to decide on the use of words under the Official Secrets Act 1920. Official Secrets Act 1920. According to this act, it is an offense to obstruct Her Majesty's forces in the vicinity of a prohibited place. Forces in the vicinity of a prohibited place. The court was actually dealing with this part. What do you mean by in the vicinity of? Okay. Now, what actually happened? They have obstructed. Say this is the prohibited place. According to the 1920 Act, if you obstruct Her Majesty's forces in the vicinity of this place, then you are guilty. The defendants obstructed inside the prohibited place. So the argument was that we did not commit any offense under the act because we did not do it in the vicinity of, we have done it inside. Okay. Now, if you go by the literal meaning of it, you have only committed an offense if you have done it here, any of these places, not inside it. Okay, but that's an absurd outcome. And how can it be an offense if you do something outside it but not inside it? Okay, so you see, this had one clear meaning, but applying this clear meaning means that we are getting an absurd outcome, which does not corroborate with the intention of the Parliament. It will have to correspond with the intention of the Parliament. Okay. Right. The divisional court held that the words in the vicinity of must be read as must be read as in or in the vicinity of a prohibited place. Because it would be absurd if an offense was committed when the obstruction took place outside and no offense if the obstruction occurred inside the prohibited place. Inside the prohibited place. It must be noted here that the court has expanded the statutory wording in order to overcome the absurdity and uphold the intention of the parliament. Uphold the intention of the parliament. Okay? What's the new paragraph? If any statutory word has clear meaning but it is in violation of a social policy, then the courts are not likely to apply the literal rule, but to adopt the golden rule broad approach. Broad approach. For example, read 6 words. Where the court had to deal with the provision of the Administration of the Estates Act 1925, Administration of Estates Act, ESTATES, Estates Act 1925, where the residuary estate of a person dying intestate. Dying intestate. Do you know what is intestate? INTESTATE. Dying intestate must be divided among the issue. Okay. Intestate means if someone dies without leaving any will. Okay, so if I die without leaving any will, that means I will die intestate. Okay. The rule was anybody dying without a will, whatever property is there, that will have to be divided among the issue. Okay. Now, what do you mean by issue? Must be divided among the issue. What is the meaning of issue?
Issue means compared to the property.
Yes, it's mainly referring to the children. So anybody, according to the Administration of the States Act 1925, anybody dying without any will, whatever property is left after the funeral, the residual property cannot because there you have to think about the funeral cost as well. So after the cost of funeral, whatever is left, that will be divided among the issue. That means all the surviving children. Okay, it's very simple. In Re Sixworth, what happened? Mrs. Sixworth died. Okay, and she died intestate. There was no will. Now, if we say that the residual property should be divided among the issue, that means the surviving children, the children surviving her will get the property. Now she had only one son. So if we apply the literal meaning, who should get it? The son should get it because the son is the issue. Okay? But what happened? Mrs. Sixworth was killed by the son. She was murdered by her son. Now, if we apply the literal rule, he should get the property. There's no doubt about it. But it leads to the violation of the public policy that no one should benefit from their own crime. Okay, no one should enjoy the fruits of their own crime. Because if you give this to the son, it would actually encourage people to commit this kind of crime. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so court said we can't use the literal rule here. What we have to do, you have to use the broader approach, saying that as it is in violation of the public policy, the son can't get it. Am I clear? That is same thing happened. There's another case, ex parte Connor, where Mrs. Connor was convicted of manslaughter because for killing her husband. Now she was given a reduced sentence because there were other mitigating factors. Husband was quite abusive. Okay, so she was given a reduced sentence. And when she was in jail, in prison, she claimed widow's benefit under Social Security's law. Now, if you start asking the questions, why are you claiming widow's benefit? Because my husband died, isn't it? How did your husband die? I killed him. So that's actually, if you just ask these questions, this would sound very absurd anyway, isn't it? On top of that, it is in violation of the social policy that no one should enjoy the benefits of their own crime. So the court, in both occasions, in Re Sixworth and ex parte Connor, in both occasions, the court said, sorry, you are not entitled to these benefits. Are we clear? Okay. The court held that although the surviving son of Mrs. Sixworth as issue could succeed all property but allowing it would violate an established social policy which prevents a criminal from enjoying the fruits of his own crime. Although Mrs. Sixworth's son should get the property, the social policy implications the social policy implications are quite absurd and obnoxious. Full stop. The same principle was applied in ex parte conversion. So let's think. Literal rule কখন apply হবে?
So when the word has one clear meaning and the outcome is not abstract.
Good. One clear, crystal clear meaning and no absurdity, you apply the literal rule. Okay. Whenever you see that there is a literal meaning of words, but the problem is that it leads to an absurd outcome, what do you apply? Golden rule, narrow approach. If there's a clear meaning but leads to violation of the public policy, what do you apply? You apply golden rule, narrow approach. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. Next is the mischief rule. Amika, you know, I don't know whether you have noticed, I have uploaded something about this statutory interpretation. A lot of Dr. Wayne Watson's lectures. Those very helpful for you to understand. Okay, I'm going to things that I'm teaching are mostly similar patterns. Right? Okay. Now the mischief rule originates from Haydon's case. And according to this case, the following four things must be considered. Number one, what was the common law before the making of the act? What was the common law before the making of the act? Number 2. What was the mischief and defect? What was the mischief and defect which the common law could not prevent? Could not prevent. Number 3. What remedy the Parliament has given to resolve the problem? And number 4, the true reason for the remedy. I'll give you a case first. Again, in the case of Corkery versus Carpenter, a man was arrested without a warrant for being drunk in charge of a bicycle on the highway. For being drunk in charge of a bicycle on the highway. According to the Licensing Act 1872, according to Licensing Act 1872, a person found drunk, in charge of a carriage, on the highway can be arrested without a warrant. The divisional court had to decide whether a bicycle was a carriage for the purposes of the 1872 Act. Full stop. The court held that okay. Before I do that, what I thought, let's do this way. Read the 4 points of Hayden's case. Apply those 4 points in the Corkery versus Carpenter. You see, if you look at 1872 Act, okay, and if you look at the Haydon's case, what do you see? What is Haydon's case suggesting? What is the clue for the application of mischief rule? So
it has to go to the common law first.
that means look at this 1872 Act. The area of law of the 1872 Act. Okay. Before this, there was no statute in this area. Okay. Before this, what did we have?
No statute.
There was no statute. What was there? There was only common law. So the first thing you find out what is the common law. If you can't find anything, then there was nothing. No remedy was given by the common law in that area. Okay. Even if there was in the common law, was the common law sufficient enough to, prevent the mischief? The answer is no. What is the second question?
What was the mischief and the effect which are common law?
So look at the Corker versus Carpenter case again. What was the mischief here? What was the mischief? What was the misdeed? Being drunk, in charge of a carriage on the highway. That was the mischief, right? Was the common law sufficient enough to prevent people from doing that? The answer was common law was not sufficient, was not giving us any remedy to prevent people from doing this. So common law যদি দিতে তাহলে কি স্ট্যাটিক হতো? Static আসা মানে কি? Common law was not sufficient, was not working. Okay, so there must be an act, and before that there must be sort of a vacuum, isn't it? The vacuum which was not being, filled by the common law. Okay, so two hints actually. You identify a mischief, and you see whether there was any statutory provision or whether there is basically a common law provision which can actually stop this mischief. If the answer to that is no, then you simply apply the mischief. Okay, think about it. What was the mischief? The mischief was people were getting drunk in charge of carriages on the highway. What is the mischief? What's the problem?
They can cause accidents.
They can cause accidents. They can simply block the highway, which would mean suffering from cholera. Now think about it. What was the provision? The provision said if anybody found drunk in charge of the carriage without the carriage can be arrested without a warrant. Now what did this guy do? Did he deny that he was drunk? Or did he challenge the arrest? He challenged the arrest. He said that you arrested me without warrant is not valid because I was not in charge of the carriage. What I was doing, I was in charge of the bicycle. So he is saying, what is his argument? His argument is if bicycle is not a carriage, then your arrest is not correct under section 12 of licensing act 1872. Okay, 1872 licensing act full criteria ki কখন arrest করা যাবে when he is in charge of the carriage. মানে তার কথা হচ্ছে সে কিন্তু বলে নাই কোনো যে আমি ড্রাঙ্ক ছিলাম। সে বলছে আমি ড্রাঙ্ক থাকি ড্রাইভ থাকি you can't arrest me under this act because I was not in charge of the carriage. So court had to decide. So what did the court do? If you go by the literal meaning, again, the bicycle is not included as carriage. What if he was drunk with a skateboard? Was it a carriage? If you think about it, if you say that a wheelchair is a four-wheel means carriage, then you keep it calling the carriage. Isn't it? Under the act? So, no. Now, if you go by the literal meaning of it, it's not a carriage. Okay, then we should let it go. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
But look at the mischief that the act was trying to cure, which the common law was not sufficient. The mischief was people causing trouble on the highway by the ground. Okay, so what the court said? Court said, even if it is not carriage, for the purpose of this act, I call it a carriage. So any form of transportation for the purpose of the licensing act in 72 would be regarded as a carriage. Therefore, that's the beautiful application of mischief. Activate the mischief. They said, what was there in common law? Nothing there. So we fill it up. Are we clear? Okay. If any case, if any scenario you get, and if the facts indicate that there was no statute before it, and there was only common law, you straight away, without thinking anything, you straight away apply the issue.
So can there be any scenario when none of these three rules would apply?
Sorry?
Can there be any scenario when none of these three rules would apply?
Then you go for purposive approach. Okay, the divisional court, continuation. The divisional court tells that the mischief aimed at by the act was drunken persons on the highway in charge of some form of transport which means the bicycle was a carriage. Even though it is not a carriage within the ordinary meaning of the word. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
So we got three rules today: literal rule, golden rule, mischief rule. In our next class, we will look at the purposive approach. We will look at the clash between the purposive approach and literal rule, and we will look at the rules of interpretation and some of the other things related to statutory interpretation. Okay, thank you. Giving you a break before I come to the topic.